Chapter 32. Bradley paid close attention as Mrs. Ebel taught math. He nodded his head every time she said something that he already knew. Once he almost raised his hand to answer a question, but he lost his nerve. Someone else gave the answer he would have given. I knew it, he thought as he nodded his head. He had spent recess in the library reading My Parents Didn't Steal an Elephant by Uriah C. Lasso. When he was leaving the library, Mrs. Woolcott stopped him and said, "You were reading, weren't you?" Yes. Good for you, Bradley. Good for you. He smiled now as he remembered. It's because of Carla's book, he thought. The book was his lucky charm. As long as he had it with him, it seemed long. His black eye was almost gone, too. When the bell rang for lunch, he put his math book away, took out his lucky book, and walked to Mrs. Ebel's desk. May I please borrow the hall pass? He asked. She let him have it. He knew she would. He was holding the magic book. He walked to Carla's office. Just as he was raising his fist to knock, she opened the door. Bradley, what a pleasant surprise. You want to have lunch together? He asked. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't. I have to go to the principal's office. What's the matter? Did you get in trouble? He joked. She didn't laugh at his joke. She shrugged her shoulders, then headed towards the principal's office. Maybe she really did get into trouble, Bradley thought as he watched her go. It's probably because she doesn't believe in rules. She must have broken one without knowing it. I should have warned her. But he wasn't too worried. He couldn't imagine anything bad ever happening to Carla. As he walked through the auditorium and outside to the playground, he sat down on the steps outside the auditorium and ate his lunch. At least he had her book with him. That was almost as good as eating lunch with her. He didn't read while he ate. He was afraid he might accidentally spill food on the book, even though there were no such things as accidents. Colleen Varigold walked by. Hello, Colleen, he called to her. She stopped, looked at him oddly, then walked away without returning his hello. Bradley didn't mind. He had said hello to Colleen because he knew Carla would appreciate it. He felt Carla was watching over him. And it didn't matter that Colleen didn't say hello back because in his heart he heard Carla say, Hello, Bradley. It's a pleasure to see you today. He finished eating and then he opened up his book. Guess what they've done now? They've wallpapered the garage. I told you they were crazy. Whoever heard of anybody putting wallpaper on the walls of a garage? Purple paper with yellow polka dots. I don't even know how they got in there. The garage has been locked shut for months. The lock was broken or something so nobody could get in. At least I'm glad they finally got it open. It was beginning to smell pretty bad. You could smell it from the driveway. Now it just smells like paste. I can't wait until my parents get home and put an end to all this craziness. Their trial is next week. They have to be found innocent. I mean, if they stole an elephant, I'd know about it, wouldn't I? Where could you hide an elephant? Look, he's reading, said Robbie. Yeah, I didn't know he knew how to read, laughed Curtis. Bradley looked up. He was surrounded by Jeff and his gang. He can't read, said Brian. He just looks at the pictures. They all laughed. What you reading? Asked Russell. Bradley closed the book and slowly stood on the concrete steps. You chicken chuckers, said Dan. Andy bounced a basketball. Bradley glanced behind him. Doug was blocking the door to the auditorium. What's the matter, Bradley? He asked. Hey, Chuckers, what's the name of your book? Asked Robbie. He looked down at his book, then stared defiantly at Robbie. Yeah, come on, let me see it, said Robbie. Bradley clutched it against his chest. No matter what, he wasn't going to let anything happen to Carla's book. Aw, come on, Bradley, be a pal, said Robbie. I just want to see it. Curtis chuckled. Robbie stepped up toward him. You can't read anyway, he said. Give it to me and I'll read it to you. He reached out and rested his hand on the book, and Bradley jerked it away. Uh-oh, I think he's getting angry, said Brian. Come on, I just want to see it, said Robbie. Again, he reached for the book. Bradley held it under his left arm, and against his chest, he made his right hand into a fist. Robbie backed away. Jeff, he called. Yeah, come on, Jeff, teach him a lesson, said Dan. Jeff stepped between Andy and Russell. All right, said Curtis. Hold on, said Andy. Let's get him off the steps. The boys backed up. Bradley, clutching his book, walked down the concrete steps to where Jeff was waiting. Hey, do you want me to hold your book, Bradley? Said Andy. Bradley glanced at him. No, don't worry, he said sincerely. I won't hurt it. Bradley handed Andy the book, and then he looked back at Jeff. They stood on a patch of grass and dirt and faced each other. The bruise around Jeff's eye had turned brown with greenish tint. Jeff raised his fists. The other boys formed a circle around them. Come on, Jeff! Get him! Urged Brian. Yeah, give him another black eye! Said Russell. Bradley readied himself. He raised his fists in the air, and then he lowered them. He had an idea. Hello, Jeff, he said. Robbie snickered. Jeff stared at him, blink, blink, wide-eyed. Hello, Bradley, he replied. Bradley smiled and held out his hand. Jeff smiled too. It was his first honest smile in a long time, and he shook his best friend's hand. The other boys were dumbfounded. No one said a word. And finally, Andy broke the ice. Hey, do you like to play basketball, Bradley? He asked. Bradley looked at him bewildered. I'm not very good, he said. So, none of us are, said Jeff, patting him on the back. Yay, now we all have even teams, said Robbie.